Good evening, Twin Cities. My name is Dennis Peoples, and today on the show we have photographer Mary Rogers. We are going to discuss some of the shots that Mary has taken over a period of time. She has a collage that's entitled Things with Wings, and some of the photo shots have taken her to many different places. Some have required her to spend hours at a time trying to get one shot, and we're going to delve into that a little bit today, what it takes to get certain shots. And we're going to start with the dragonfly. What was that shot like, trying to get that shot?
It took me about 2 hours. It had to be in broad daylight with the sun, so I knew that if I captured the wings, they would glisten like gossamer.
Wow.
And I had to use a 300-meter telephoto lens, which required chasing around this tiny little insect, basically, around the lake and laying on your stomach, and it turned out to be just a great shot.
Wow. Can you imagine chasing an insect around the lake for a couple of hours just to get one shot? But Mary, she does that quite often. It took a lot of patience, I would guess, to get that
Well, one of the
shot.
reasons I started photography was to be able to see the world through someone else's eyes, meaning the lens. And what it did was I see things differently through the lens than I see with my own eyes. And pretty soon it opens up the world to all kinds of excitement. I meet new people, I run into different challenges, and it has just been a joy to my life.
When you say you run into different challenges, is that the challenges of getting a shot, the preparation for a shot? Like you said, sometimes it's grueling weather.
For me, lighting is everything. Lighting is everything in a shot. And it requires you to go back and revisit, taking the same shot over and over again in different light, different apertures, learning about your camera, learning how to make it work for you.
When you speak of aperture, what does that all encompass? For those of us who are not photography savvy, what is aperture?
Well, aperture is the lens and how wide it's open. Shutter speed is how quickly you allow that lens to open at that aperture. So, for example, I used to do a lot of low light photography, which is my business's name, Urban Nights Photography, because I was doing it at night. And you learn a lot about how to make that work. Low light photography becomes difficult, but it is exceptionally rewarding because it gives you such brilliant captures of neon lights reflecting on a lake or a river, car trails going down the road where the car you don't see, but you see the light trails behind it.
Going down.
Yeah.
Now, your company, Urban Nights, is that a title that you gave it?
Yes.
How did you arrive to?
Well, at the time I started this, I was working at a real job. And I only had time in the late evening and night, which actually turned out to be a blessing because that golden hour that photographers go for, which is an hour and a half before sunset and an hour after sunset, is the prime time to have the most amazing light. And so I just happened to bump into it accidentally.
Sunsets are, so your sunsets would be a favorite time for you shooting?
Actually not, but sunrises are.
Sunrises are better for you? Okay.
My idea of a great morning is a cup of coffee, a donut, my camera, my iPad, and my iPod in my ears, and sitting around Lake Harriet or Lake Calhoun with the sun rising over the sailboats. I mean, it is stunning, just drop dead stunning.
Now, out of the Twin Cities, where are some of the places that you frequent to get shots? I just heard you mention like Lake Harriet and...
I go all over. I currently have a contract with the National Park Service doing what they call the phrenology project, which is taking the same shots every 2 weeks to see how things change over time. So I've sort of fallen in love with downtown along Stone Arch Bridge, or I go to Fort Snelling to get a lot of wildlife shots. Interesting, the most and the best shots I've ever gotten of egrets and herons and trumpeter swans has been at Lake Harriet. I mean, it's just
Gorgeous.
well, it's just tons of birds and animals, foxes,
Okay.
deer.
Do you see how her face lights up when she talks about these things? Foxes, and I spoke to Mary once, and I called her, and I said, well, what are you doing? And she was taking a shot of an ant. And she told me she had been laying on her stomach for a couple of hours, just photographing this one ant. So that's a lot
I
of...
didn't say I was an eccentric. I just,
Yeah, but that is dedication.
yeah, that is exactly what it requires. You have to drop your guard. You have to be prepared for any opportunity. You have to carry your camera all the time. You have to be open and receptive to things that you see on the street or in the air, or an idea that you may have that you want to capture. There's no way to be guarded and be a photographer. You can't. You have to be open all the time, receptive. And
No.
it's made me a different person,
I was
actually.
gonna
It has
say,
made
it's,
me a different person.
The better person, better photographer.
Better photographer, actually, probably more importantly, a better person.
Okay.
It brings joy and happiness to my heart. Peace, my headphones, my camera, and I shut out the world.
Wow.
I shut it out.
I want to ask a question about the baby geese. Those pictures that you took.
Yeah.
Tell us about how you captured that and what made you
They were taking
want
a
to
nap.
capture.
There were four of
that
them,
paper.
2 older ones, and they're still in the golden fur stage. And they were laying alongside the edge of the Lake Harriet, and they were all nestled together, and I took a couple of shots, and they heard the click, and they turned around, and I thought, can't ask for more than that. And so I shot. They're just darling.
Okay. And the egrets.
Egrets. It's hard to find them. I was with somebody the other day at Fort Snelling, and we were driving down the road and pulled over, and it's flooding over parts of Fort Snelling right now because of the high water, which forces the egrets and herons to come in closer to fish. And parked the car, got out, bingo, captured the egret on continuous burst speed, which meant I could capture 10 frames every second. So of course I happened to capture the egret with the fish in between its bill.
And it is a gorgeous shot, let me tell you.
Cheers. Thank you.
What are some of your favorite shots that you've taken over time that you hold dear to your heart that, just so you know, Mary has over 10,000 photographs on her website. So asking her which, and we've kind of went round and round the last couple of weeks, Mary, pick 5. Well, I got 10,000, so which would be, if you could name 2 of your favorites, what would it be? What would they be? Would it be?
It's an egret shot. It's actually sort of moved into wildlife photography, but prior to that would be a couple of sailboat shots. It isn't simple enough for me to figure out which one I like. It has to do with how I felt at the time, what it made me feel.
So the egrets at Fort Snelling, how did
Yes.
that make you
Well, I've
like-
gotten a lot of those, so it's interesting. At some point in time, you get sort of complacent and say, oh, I've had that. So, I mean, people, when I walk around the lake, will say, oh, I saw the egret down there, and I thank them for it, but it's like, I only have 8,000 of those shots, so I'm not...
Only
I'm-
8,000
Well, no,
of those?
I'm exaggerating.
I know.
But I mean, for me, it has to be something new. It has to spark. Coming into the studio, I mean, already I was taking shots because it's different, it's unique. For me, it's different and unique. And some of the isolated shots that show, there's a part of me that still doesn't share well. And so I tend to notice I gravitate to those shots with a blue background and the chair with the highlights on the side of it. Somehow I still like that lonely looking, isolated
shot.
silhouettes. Yeah.
So would you, let's say in the next 2 or 3 years, be on a different level with your photography?
Yes.
Because you have Urban Nights right now. Where would you like to see Urban Nights in 2 or 3 years? Doing what, more contract work with the city,
No.
independent work, or?
I'm independent, free-spirited. I'm not someone that wants to follow. I have friends who will only pick up their cameras if they're paid. I'll only pick up my camera if I'm not paid. I don't want anything to change how I feel about it, the passion that I have for it. I would like to start doing some photography, event photography at night.
Okay. Give us an example.
Oh, I did the jazz.
Yeah, the
Twin City Jazz Festival, yeah.
Okay.
And I wasn't exactly prepared for it, but that's all right.
Yeah. And she got gorgeous shots, of course.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So can we look forward to seeing you again out in the community, taking more shots?
I'm always out in the community, yeah.
And
Absolutely.
she is, and she doesn't ask permission all the time with the camera.
I never ask permission, I only ask forgiveness.
You've heard it first here on the Twin Cities Variety Show. Have a good night, Max. Thank you. you.